Walter Matthau and Bruce Dern star after Nightline.
Chile, September 1973. A military coup overthrows the left-wing government of Salvador Allende. The regime of General Augusto Pinochet begins with a reign of terror. Chile, October 1988. A national referendum says no to the Pinochet dictatorship. After 15 years of military rule, the stage is set for a new chance at freedom. Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. We'll go live to Santiago tonight to talk with the leader of the victorious opposition and with an influential supporter of the Pinochet government. And joining us here in Washington, the Assistant Secretary of State for Inter-American Affairs, Elliot Abrams.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
If you are bored or frustrated by our election campaign, if you are inclined to view the entire process with cynicism, you might find it refreshing or at least instructive to spend the next few minutes familiarizing yourselves with what's happening in Chile these days. The national referendum that took place there yesterday is, by U.S. standards, a rather modest affair. What was being decided, after all, brings about no immediate change in government. It is simply the preamble to an election that is now supposed to take place in 15 months. And that would, whether the present government wins or loses, leave General Augusto Pinochet with enormous power. And yet, 97% of Chile's eligible voters lined up for hours for the privilege of voting. And many of them wept with joy for the small step toward democracy that has now been taken. Among those who rejoiced, one of Chile's most prominent writers, Ariel Dorfman, who has spent most of the last 15 years living in exile. You should know that a yes vote would have given General Pinochet another 8 years in office. The no vote calls for presidential elections to be held in late 1989.
Tonight, the people of Chile came out of exile. They took their land back. They said, this is our land. It does not belong to one general. And from now on, we're not going to let it go ever again.
I think that Pinochet is already something of the past. I think that he is a beaten general. And a beaten general in war must leave.
We are entering a period of uncertainty. We don't know who will be the next president.
I recognize and accept the verdict of the majority.
In 1983, they let me back for the first time, and then I came back 5 or 6 times, and it was okay. In other words, each time I came back, nothing would happen to me. Then I came back in August of 1987, in fact, 1 year ago, and they arrested me at the airport right here, I mean, just around the corner from where we are, and they took me into custody and deported us 7 or 8 hours later with the little boy. And now they say that exile is over forever again, and I don't believe them. I think that they will reinstitute exile if they so desire it. Well, you know something, Marisa? I'm going to go to the march now, okay? And I'm trying to catch the end of it. They're saying joy is coming. Joy is on the way. And what joy means is basically such few things. Things that used to be normal in this country. That we can go onto the streets and not be beaten. That you can strike, for instance, right? That you can have a free press. That you haven't got a disappeared relative.
In Chile, what we are trying to do is to have at the same time progress, development, and democracy. And the only way of doing that, in Latin America at least, we think is that it is providing for a certain stability of the institutions so that no occasional majority can change everything every 6 or 3 or 4 years.
This is the final rally for the yes vote for the Pinochet, the pro-Pinochet forces. They're holding it in the Central Avenue of Santiago, which was just denied to the no vote. And the problem that we have is, how do we come to terms? How do these two Chiles come to terms?
If no wins, I think that Chile is going to change. And it's going to change in a bad way.
Allende government was terrible. It was every day you wake up in the morning, you say Allende is governed. Oh.
I believe that there are people in the United States that have been tortured, and in Great Britain, and in France, and in Germany, and everywhere. I don't believe that the Pinochet system is built in a torture system.
This is Orfilia, who is the mom of this family, and her husband disappeared more than 10 years, 12 years ago. And those are the photographs that they got. And she, at night, she does not undress to go to sleep because she's scared. She doesn't know if they're going to come and get her. She doesn't know if she's going to have to run away.
Justicia. Queremos justicia.
Que no tenga o un desaparecido,
There's not a family that doesn't have a
preso
disappeared
político,
person.
o un exiliado, o un hijo
An
cesante,
exiled or somebody
o un hijo que
unemployed,
ha sufrido tortura.
or somebody who's been tortured, a kid who has been
Entonces
hurt.
es muy necesario que haya este espíritu así de conciliación, de reencuentro, de paz en una
It's
palabra.
time to have peace.
I hope that the yes will have a very close lead over the no. I would say not more than 2 points. I think the election is going, the plebiscite is going to be very close, very close. People are evenly divided in the country.
When the yes vote begins to say they're only going to win by 2%, I think it's an indication that they're conceding defeat. Because I think we are going to win by at least 12, perhaps 15% of the vote. I went in with this piece of paper which I treated with utmost delicacy. To see only General Pinochet on this ballot, it seems sort of indecent, ridiculous. I mean, why should I? I mean, you know, I felt a little sense of outrage. I also felt, you know, a bit sad because I thought of all the dead people for whom I'm voting. You see, there are friends of mine who are dead, who have been executed, who can't vote. There are missing people, disappeared people who cannot vote.
Given the results that we already have here, the no is going to win by a landslide. This is the beginning of the end of Pinochet, and this is the beginning of the effort that all of us will have to do in order to build democracy again in Chile.
The only thing that's clear at this moment is he has lost, and the one word I want to hear Pinochet say is goodbye.
When we come back, we'll go to Santiago to talk with the leader of the opposition coalition that defeated Pinochet, Ricardo Lagos, and with a Pinochet reporter, journalist Hermógenes Pérez de Arce.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Ford Motor Company.
Ford profiles in quality. Dealer service.
At Ford, we're committed to building the highest quality American cars and trucks.
As a Ford dealer, we want to back that up with the highest quality service in America.
That's why we can offer 6-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty.
And we can back it up with lifetime service guarantees.
We're as determined to provide quality care
as we are to building quality cars and trucks.
At your Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealer, quality is job one.
Clean up the yard with this Ames lawn rake for only $2.49 and light up the place with outdoor floodlights, 99 cents after rebate. Hey, lots of good stuff here. All over. You can't miss it. Hey, let me tell you, Ace is the place for me.
After you've produced the yearly report in record time and made color part of your winning proposal, you'll know why Canon is the most popular copier in America. From personal to color laser copying, the choice is Canon.
So yeah, it was one of those days where pretty much everything turned out wrong.
Honey, it's Mark. About the tickets, well, call me.
Except for something I bought for myself. That I bought for myself, just because. And buying that gold bracelet felt so right. The whole rest of the world disappeared.
When you really want to treat yourself, nothing makes you feel as good as gold.
Who cares more about New Jersey? Senator Frank Lautenberg has fought for New Jersey his whole life.
He wrote the law to save young lives by raising the drinking age, banned ocean dumping, protected our families from chemical hazards. Pete Dawkins? He came to New Jersey to further his political career. He polled in 4 other states before finding his way here. Senator Frank Lautenberg, a fighter for New Jersey. Pete Dawkins. Whose future will he fight for, ours or his? Frank Lautenberg, New Jersey first.
More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. ABC News, America's choice.
There are several major questions in the aftermath of the Chilean referendum. Among them, will General Pinochet continue to abide by the results? And can the 16-party coalition that defeated him maintain its unity until elections are held? Joining us from Santiago is one of the top leaders of that coalition, Ricardo Lagos, a socialist who heads the Party for Democracy and who is one of those expected to seek the presidency. Also joining us from Santiago is Hermógenes Pérez de Arce, a columnist and a member of the editorial board of the pro-Pinochet newspaper El Mercurio. Mr. Pérez de Arce is also a member of one of 4 quasi-governmental commissions run by the Chilean junta. Mr. Lagos, why the euphoria? Why the jubilation? What have you really won?
The euphoria is not because we wanted to have a plebiscite. A plebiscite is not a democratic way to elect a president. The euphoria, it is simply because we defeated Augusto Pinochet, not the armed forces, but we defeated a dictator that during 15 years has violated human rights in Chile. We have been condemned year after year by the United Nations. The euphoria is because we think that after showing the armed forces that we are the majority and the majority are for democracy, they will have to understand that it's going to be necessary to make some steps in order to return the power to the people. In other words, that the people now may be able to choose a president, a Congress, but a Congress that really can dictate the laws, can be able to do the power of any parliament and not be only some decorative part of an authoritarian leader in power.
You have raised some excellent points, and I want to take them up with Mr. Perez for a moment, because that is precisely what I meant by my question initially. For example, the Constitution as it now exists does not call for a Congress that has real democratic powers. The Constitution as it now exists says even if there is an election, and even if General Pinochet is defeated, he still stays on as head of the armed forces. Therefore, what I'm asking is, what really is going to change even a year from now, 15 months from now after the election? Does not the power still remain in General Pinochet's hands?
No, it doesn't, sir, because the Constitution calls for a legislative Congress that will have to approve the laws that are sent by the President, that has many faculties, even the one to displace the President in cases of faults against the law or the Constitution. So we are not speaking of a nominal or decorative Congress, but of a legislative power in all the sense of the word.
And yet the Congress that exists right now is anything but a legislative parliament. The Congress, there is no Congress at the moment.
There is no Congress now, and we will have one after that election at the end of next year.
General Pinochet
but will you excuse me, Mr. Pérez de Arce? But of course, this is a Congress that is going to be formed by 26 elected senators and 8 to 9 designated senators, and of course, Pinochet is going to be senator for life. This is the kind of representative system.
You are forgetting the 120 chamber of deputies.
Of course, but we have 2 chambers, and senators is essential if we want to amend the Constitution.
Well, Mr.
Pinochet, with the armed forces, is going to designate 8 to 9 senators are given the quorum to amend the Constitution.
That is not the case. That is not correct.
Actual Constitution is not being possible to be amended.
That is not correct.
Given the number of senators.
That is simply not the facts. The facts are that the President of the Republic has the right to designate only 2 of the designed members of the Senate.
Who is going to designate? Who is going to designate the other members? Who is going to designate?
The other members are designated. They are designated. They should be designated by the Supreme Court, by the Council of the National Security,
gentlemen,
and by the Supreme Court.
Permit me to interrupt you both for just 1 minute. It's Mr. Lagos. It's very difficult for us to understand you if you both speak at the same time. But you, Mr. Lagos, are in point of fact making precisely the point that I was trying to make to you before. That is, what you have won in yesterday's referendum seems to be a very, very tiny step toward democracy. Would you agree?
It's a very tiny step toward democracy according to Pinochet's constitution. Therefore, what we demanded was that, given the result of the plebiscite, and we demanded in advance, we hope that the armed forces will listen the will of the majority of the Chilean people. This is the whole point.
How can you say?
We demonstrate, Pinochet and the armed forces, that we are the majority of the Chilean people.
How can you say it is a small step when he will have to leave office? How can you say it is a small step?
I can say it's a small, I mean, I'm suggesting it's a small step, Mr. Perez de Arce, because the power will still reside with him. He will still lead the military. He will still be in the Senate.
That is not correct, sir, because the power remains in the presidency of the Republic, and he will not be the president.
But he can
the
still...
president will have to be elected.
He can run for election himself, can he not?
No, he cannot run for election again.
He can designate who he wants to have.
Well, anybody can designate a candidate. Anybody can designate a candidate for the next election.
All right, gentlemen, if I may, we'll come back to all of this in a moment. We will also be joined when we come back by the top State Department official whose principal concern is Latin America, Assistant Secretary of State Elliott Abrams.
The Acura Legend sedan offers such amenities as leather-trimmed interior, sophisticated stereo system, and ergonomically designed controls. Is it any wonder people enjoy sitting in it? And with its 24-valve 3.7-liter V6, is it any wonder they enjoy standing on it? The Legend sedan, precision-crafted performance from Acura.
Dear John, I have a new love. So sweet, so rich. New chocolatey Black Forest cake from Weight Watchers. Dreamy cherries, creamy topping. I've gone for more. Love, Lynn.
A legend has been created. A better battery for the future. Better with more reserve power. Better with a warranty that lasts over 6 years. Better with a special $10 rebate available right now. The Legend from Napa. A better battery.
As a candidate, Michael Dukakis called Boston Harbor an open sewer. As governor, he had the opportunity to do something about it, but chose not to. The Environmental Protection Agency called his lack of action the most expensive public policy mistake in the history of New England. Now, Boston Harbor, the dirtiest harbor in America, will cost residents $6 billion to clean. And Michael Dukakis promises to do for America what he's done for Massachusetts.
This is all it takes to check your gas heater for winter. First, look at the pilot light. If it's not lit, read the instructions on the heater and light it. Next, turn your thermostat to the highest setting. If the heater kicks on, great. But if the heater or thermostat doesn't seem to be working right, call PGW. Check now, because you never know when the winter winds are going to start to blow.
Hey! You ruined my reputation. Me? Your Encore frozen entrees, too much food. Too much? Hey, folks think I'm a quitter because I can't finish all those big, beautiful helpings of Encore. But Encore's a 2-pound family-size entree. Well, I ain't got a family. You do now. Mine. And we love lasagna. We'll be over tonight, 5:30.
What? Excuse me, it's mathematically impossible for one human to eat.
Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Precisely.
When you want more, it's encore.
The face of early morning news has changed.
More live coverage
along with analysis from the best in the business.
on ABC's World News this morning.
Charlie Gibson, weekdays on Good Morning America.
The U.S. State Department today praised the referendum in Chile as an important step toward democracy and an impressive demonstration of the power of the ballot box. A statement also pledged strong U.S. support for the orderly and peaceful evolution of democracy in Chile. Joining us now in Washington is Elliot Abrams, Assistant Secretary of State for Inter-American Affairs, who's been tracking developments in Chile since he was named Assistant Secretary of State for Human Rights in 1981. Help me out with that point that we were arguing about a moment ago. I had one of our researchers look into it while we were in the commercial break, and I'm told that technically General Pinochet could resign, hand over power to a member of his junta, and then run for election himself. What do you think the chances are of that happening?
I think they're going to have a big constitutional legal dispute in Chile as to whether he can run for president. The Constitution can be read two different ways. And this is a key question. There are a lot of unsettled questions, as you saw in that debate. One of them is whether Pinochet is constitutionally eligible to run again.
Tell me now, and I realize you're in a somewhat delicate position as a senior U.S. diplomat, but what we are hearing is that the Chilean military is a little bit impatient with General Pinochet and realizes that perhaps his time has come and gone, and that certainly in some elements of the military they'd like to see him out of power. What's your impression?
I think the military is probably going to be more unified in the next few months than it has been in the past few. I think that they're going to get behind Pinochet. That's a prediction. What you have now is really a left-right dispute. Now you're heading towards free elections. Chile has always had a very divided electorate. It's got the largest communist party in South America. As you could see again from this debate, there are some pretty bitter divisions. After 15 years of military rule, 43% of Chileans voted for 8 more years of military rule. So I think the army, in a situation like this, when they've just lost an election, is really going to stay with President Pinochet and is going to be fairly tough on questions of law and order.
Well, now, as I listened to Mr. Lagos in particular, he seemed to draw a rather deliberate distinction between the military and General Pinochet. He was making it quite clear that he, at least, regards this as a defeat for General Pinochet, not for the military.
Well, that's a very intelligent thing for him to do. I mean, it is the line that he should be taking, and he should be trying to drive, from his point of view, he should be trying to drive a wedge between President Pinochet and the army and the rest of the military. It's going to be tough to do, I think, at this point. I think the natural instinct in defeat will be to stay together. But as I say, I think that it is sensible for the opposition now to say this was a yes-no on Pinochet as an individual. It was not a yes-no on the army.
Mr. Lagos,
don't you think?
Yes, go ahead.
But I don't think that this is only a question of an intelligent point. It's more than that. It's not a technicality to say that Mr. Pinochet was the only name in the ballot box. But what is more important from our point of view is that the armed forces as such are institutions that belong to the nation as a whole. And you cannot commit that kind of institution to a particular president or to a particular general, especially if this is a defeated one. And when we say that Pinochet was going to be defeated, but not the armed forces, it is precisely because during the next 1 year is the peculiar parliament formed by the armed forces, the only institution that is in a position to change this extremely undemocratic constitution that we have. And this is why it's so important, first, that the armed forces should not feel defeated, and second, that they are willing to amend the Constitution, at least with regard to the rules to amendment of the Constitution, as the only way that tomorrow we can be back to a really democratic system.
Gentlemen, if you'll hold on just one second. Mr. Lagos, I have to interrupt, and Mr. Perez, I'll give you a chance to respond, and then we'll hear from Secretary Abrams again when we continue our discussion in a moment.
This is precious cargo. Telecommunications equipment on its way to Japan. On another day, it might be medical systems headed for Europe. We design and build that equipment. We're Siemens USA. 27,000 people, 47 manufacturing plants, and nearly $3 billion in sales and service of electronic and electrical equipment. And each year, 15% of that is worldwide exports from America. We are Siemens USA.
What? Do you have a question? Your hand has been up as long as I've been here.
Newsweek magazine says Tom Hanks tops himself in Punchline. Punchline delivers a direct hit, says the Toronto Sun. Sheila Benson of the LA Times calls it bold, sneaky, brilliant. I can't remember laughing this much with tears still streaming down my face. PBS syndicated Flick says take your wife, please, to see Punchline.
Come on! Right!
Sally Field, Tom Hanks, Punchline, rated R. Now at select theaters. Starts Friday at theaters nationwide.
There's something made for your wallet that's more powerful than money. Something that connects you to anyone, virtually anywhere in the world.
Bonjour, j'arrive à 10 heures.
From any phone in the U.S.,
Down the car.
24 hours a day. Something that not only saves you time, it saves you money.
Hi, John. Just got in. Where's the meeting?
Okay, fax it to my hotel.
The MCI card.
Yeah, we got the green light.
It is America's business card.
A performance you won't forget. The new Ford Probe GT.
Have you driven a Ford lately?
Continuing our discussion now with Mr. Perez de Arce, do you agree that this distinction can be drawn between the rejection of General Pinochet and the desire to bring the military into the restructuring of a new Chilean government?
The military will have nothing to do with the next government because it will be a fully civilian government, and the Constitution provides for that. The affirmation that the next government, with or without President Pinochet, would be a military government does not have base on facts.
That's not the question. Mr. Perez, forgive me. Perhaps I didn't state my question clearly. I know what it says about the new government. What we're talking about is the next 15 months. At the moment, the military has power. There is no new government yet. My question has to do with those next 15 months.
Well, there's no doubt about that. The regime continues as it is for the next 15 months until the election of President and Congress.
But my question is whether the military will feel independent enough of General Pinochet that it will help this transition come about, because theoretically, of course, the military could also prevent the transition from happening.
No, sir. The military are committed by their honor to respect and make respected the Constitution. So nothing will happen in that sense.
Secretary Abrams, that, after all, is the big question. Can the military restrain itself from stepping in again? Will the military restrain itself from stepping in again? Is that election 15 months from now, as a clean election, a foregone conclusion?
I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion, but it's very likely. The military did respect the Constitution at this juncture. And don't forget, this is part of a real wave of democracy that's been sweeping Latin America. Chile was surrounded at one time by dictatorships. It's now surrounded really by democracies. And so they're the newest recruit to this democratic movement, and that's going to be a form of continuing pressure. I think the fact that the majority want clearly to move to a new kind of government will be another form of pressure. So I think it probably will work. It's going to be important for civilians and the military to have a much better dialogue than they've had over the last 15 years. That will be very valuable to making this election work. There are a lot of divisions that really have got to be sewed up to make this society come together.
And let us hope that there will be. Gentlemen, I thank you all very much for participating in this discussion. Mr. Perez de Arce, Mr. Lagos, Secretary Abrams. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than any other source.
To get through a day of school, I either had to take speed in the morning or get high.
Studies show a correlation between drug abuse and low literacy skills.
I don't think I had the responsibility to go to school at that point. I couldn't be there. I didn't do my homework if I was there. I was failing, so why be there? If I wouldn't have finished high school, I wouldn't feel very good about myself right now. I wouldn't feel like I could complete anything.
Literacy. Our future begins with basic skills.
The National League Championship Series, Game 2. The Dodger fans put on their rally caps and the LA Bats responded, devouring David Cone. Rookie pitcher Tim Belcher cruised till the ninth. Then once again the Mets would stage a comeback, but this time LA held on. Now the series is tied for Game 3 tomorrow night on ABC Sports.
This is the new generation of old. This is you. This is high. This is old. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. This is the new generation of Olds.
Get your hands on a new generation Oldsmobile at your Olds Connection dealer today.
Here are some facts you may not have heard before, but they're true. Frank Lautenberg says he cares about the deficit, but he voted to give himself a congressional pay raise. Lautenberg says he cares about ethics in government, yet as a senator, he pocketed tens of thousands of dollars dealing in stocks of companies that do business with the government. He says he wants to clean up toxic waste, but he's taken big contributions from some of New Jersey's worst toxic polluters. New Jersey can do better. Pete Dawkins for United States Senate.
The Dale Wolf Agenda, Orderly Growth. Mike Castle sought Dale Wolf to run Delaware's Economic Development Office because of Dale's experience as a scientist and business executive. Delaware is booming, providing thousands of new jobs. But Dale Wolf knows that it takes more than jobs to ensure the quality of people's lives. That's why Delaware is spending millions to guarantee that open spaces like this will remain open forever. Mike Castle and Dale Wolf, two strong leaders for Delaware.
Welcome to the $1 Million